Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 4 of AMC's Mayfair Witches, entitled Curiouser and Curiouser. This episode title is tied to how I'm feeling about this show right now and why it just won't get moving. It's curiouser and curiouser to me how, like, stagnant I think this show feels. It feels very stuck in place. It's giving you information just, I feel like at a drip feed pace, and I feel like the storyline or the plot, whatever it may be, I feel like it hasn't even truly been revealed yet. We're still kind of sitting in this place of like, here, let's give you a little bit more information about who these people are. Let's give you a little bit more backstory. And I'm like, are we going to start the actual story? Because I'm like, I still feel like there's way too much to learn. You're giving me way too little each week. And I still feel like, does this show have a plot? Like, what is the point? Like, where are we going with this? Other than just like right now, we're still 4 episodes in, we're still in the range of Rowan learning about her past. And I don't know, man, like as of the time of writing like my notes to prepare for this video, like while I was typing, I'm like, I feel like this video won't even be long because there's so little for me to discuss about what happened in this episode because so little happened. Like we're now 4 episodes in, for example, and I laid out this kind of like ultimatum last week. But we're like 4 episodes in, and I still have no earthly clue of what Lasher is. Like, is he a person? Is he a ghost? And when I say ghost, I don't necessarily mean like a dead person, like, you know, like a ghost, like, woo. I don't mean that shit, but I just mean like someone who maybe like is a being that you can see, but that can't really interact with the physical world. But I don't know. I don't know if he is. And I don't know, and I have no idea, like, still what his abilities are, because they simultaneously seem very, very limited and limitless. And I'm like, what the fuck can this guy do or not do? So I'm gonna give some examples here of what I'm talking about with this character. So they throw the chain, the necklace, I'm sorry, the chain, I'm sounding like a rapper and shit. They throw this necklace around the nanny last week, and we see the nanny bashing her head in, Lasher bashing her head, and I think they even say something like, he don't like being in here, something like that. And I guess, like I said, I guess that was meant to show us that, one, he's tied to the necklace, which, again, the characters have said this directly, but one, he's tied to the necklace, and two, that he was either trapped inside this nanny or just, like, opposed to being there and having a temper tantrum. I don't know, but it felt like he was trapped, and he needed her to die in order to escape, and that's why he was having her bash her head in. But what does that show me? That he has limitations. That he, that you put the necklace on a person, he's trapped inside that person. Limitations. But then in this episode, we see him freely torturing this guy who supposedly killed Deidre, which, side note, no one even asked who this guy is or why he would kill Deidre, like what would be his motivation, but whatever. He's freely torturing inside the body of this guy who supposedly killed Deirdre. Dude ain't got no necklace on. He's just in his body. He tortured this guy, kills him, then leaves his body. Limitless. So, like, on one hand, if you got the necklace on, he's stuck. And then on the other hand, so it's like, okay, now he has that limitation. But then on the other side, it's like, okay, well, he's not limited. He can move freely in and out of people's bodies, but they told me he's tied to the necklace. So I'm like, I don't know, man. They're just so all over the fucking place with what this guy can do. And then you got the inconsistencies with the lighting that I mentioned in episode 1. It's like, okay, again, the opposite. Like 1 minute, before he enters a room, it gets really dark. 1 minute, it gets really light. It's just all over the place. After Carlotta searches the nanny's body, she can't find the necklace. She's like, the necklace is gone. He's coming for her. Now, again, assuming he is Lasher and her is Rowan, and given that we later see the necklace in Deirdre's old room, can I now infer that Lasher has the ability, he does have the ability to interact with the physical world, and that he essentially took that necklace, like, well, he bashed the lady's head in, was now free from her body, which again, limitations, now free from her body, took the necklace, again, physically interacting with the world, or he has someone working on his behalf who can, and he took the necklace to Deirdre's room for Rowan to find it. Again, that shows a lot of ability to move within the physical world, but I don't know, can he? I'm getting too much conflicting information on Lasher for me to have an idea of who he is, why he does the things that he does, and what he is, I think, is most important, because what he is can kind of inform on what his abilities are. So, like, just something to define him, so he just doesn't feel like an all-encompassing character that is also like non-encompassing. Like, I don't know. He's just so he's anything. Like, and I don't like that. And then the worst part of all this is that Rowan directly asked Cortland. She said, let me see. She says, what even is he? Which I thought was a weird way of wording that. She goes like, what even is he? And this motherfucker goes, he's an extension of you. Okay, what the fuck does that even mean? That doesn't tell me shit. And then he goes like, you know what? Just ask him yourself. Come on, man. Like, why y'all don't want to give me any information on this guy? Like, I don't need to know who he is or his past. Like, just tell me like something. Like, he can't do this, he can do that, just something. But they're just like, yo, we want anything and everything and nothing to potentially apply to Lasher. And that does not work as a character for me. This guy that has like undefined abilities and shit like that. Like, no, man, make this motherfucker make sense. Like, I can't deal with him right now. At all, honestly. Like, and for what it's worth, I'm kind of fed up with this show. I'm still like unsure, because I feel like it's gonna turn up at some point, and then I'm gonna be sitting here like, I wish I could have talked about that episode. So I might still continue coverage, but like as of right now, I'm like a firm thumbs down on this show now. It's been like okay, this has potential to, I don't know about that episode, to, if they don't pick it up next week, I'm gonna be out. And now we're here, and I'm for all intents and purposes, I'm kind of out, but I feel like I'm gonna keep watching it, because I don't know. I feel like there's something that like they're gonna find a way to make it interesting, but it's like they just ultimately have waited too long. Another example of this, the Suzanne storyline. Like I mentioned, we're getting a little piece of that every week. The little piece that we get is 1, too short, and 2, either completely uninformative or mildly uninformative. This week's episode was a completely uninformative portion of the Suzanne storyline. Like, it continues to give you nothing. It's like, what did we learn this week? That they have mildly interesting funeral rituals? That's it? Like, it's like a short scene, and that's really all we get from it. We get that the woman from last week died. Again, I don't need that information, kind of assumed it. We get that they have this interesting funeral ritual for her, and we see Suzanne bawling, lets us know that she really cared about this woman or whatever. Like, I didn't need, like, you couldn't give me, like, more than that. Like, you couldn't give me like 10 minutes maybe. I don't know how long this ran, but it wasn't 10 minutes. But you couldn't give me 10 minutes. Like, it feels like they filmed like a 20-minute kind of flashback scene for Suzanne that tells like the whole Suzanne story, and then they realized they'd have to split it into 10 2-minute portions, but they didn't care that's not enough time each week to make the Suzanne storyline interesting, so they just said, fuck it, we're gonna do it anyway. After 4 episodes, and I think the Suzanne portion we've only seen for these past 3, not only do we know next to nothing about Suzanne, but they haven't even hinted at a purpose for including this backstory. And I'm not dumb here. I'm assuming she's probably a Mayfair, probably like the original one or something. And this will tie into the current storyline, but how? Am I gonna have to sit through these brief, uninteresting, uninformative portions of her storyline for them to reveal, like in the season finale, that she's like the original Mayfair? Like, whoop de fucking do. Like, as you can see, I'm already here on episode 4. Like, that's probably where they're going. My irritation with it is that the show's not giving me shit. Like, I'm assuming all of this because I'm like, okay, they gotta be including this for some reason, so that must be it. But there's nothing in the show that's informing that. And we've now had 3 flashback scenes of this woman, and they haven't even kind of remotely hinted at how she'll be related to the current storyline, nor have they found a way to make her storyline interesting. So it's like the Suzanne shit is a fail across the board to me at this point. And I'm like, I need to understand, like, one, it needs to be rewind. I can't remember what show I said this about, but it was very recent. And I said this show uses everything. Every scene matters, where it's like something that seems like it doesn't matter. It does. I think, I can't remember what it was I was talking about. This show's like the opposite. It's replete with scenes that don't fucking matter. Like, now, they might have mattered if, like, again, this Suzanne scene in this episode might have mattered if they also attached whatever the fuck one they're gonna have before episode 5. If they had put those two together, maybe the Suzanne stuff works this week. But the Suzanne stuff didn't tell me anything interesting, and it didn't tie into the regular story, so I felt like I wasted time watching that. And then they're gonna give me enough, like they gave me an insignificant portion last week. They gave me an insignificant portion a week before that. It was like, okay, it was like the hand job and then the birds flying overhead. Then last week, the woman that was dying and her asking Suzanne to help usher her into the afterlife. And then this funeral ritual. And I'd say, what have you learned from this portion of the storyline? Do you know anything about Suzanne? Like, why they put this in the show? No. And they've done 3 episodes of backstory on this. So, like, that's why I said this show is just intent on giving you a whole bunch of shit you don't fucking need. And it's like you can either condense that or put something useful in each portion. Like, it's just something where I can learn something about the people or feel like this matters within the grand scheme of the show. And it doesn't. It feels completely diverted from the main storyline, aside from the fact that they're clearly witches. And it's just, I don't know. It's advancing at a snail's pace. Really, I think snails move faster. And it's, I don't know. It's just not going well. But before I talk about the handful of things that I did like, I do want to mention that. Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to talk about the thing that I did like first, and then I'm going to talk about some of the things that we did learn in this episode. The very little that we did learn. I liked the funeral scene and how they had the rose petals kind of flying in there. At first, I was kind of like, wait, what the fuck? But then I remembered the rose petals from, I think it was episode 1, where Deirdre's leaving out of, I think it was like a church or whatever, and they had the rose petals falling down, like Lasher showers her with rose petals. So I think that was a nice way of kind of doing like a nice callback to that scene. And then also coupling that with the killing, with Lasher's killing of the guy that supposedly killed Deirdre. And I think we're meant to understand essentially that Lasher is both mourning Deirdre and avenging her. And I think that's an interesting, I think that's an interesting bit of a little something that we've learned about Lasher, is that it seems like on its face that he truly does care about Deirdre. So that's the first thing I know about Lasher. There we go. So what else did we learn in this episode? There are a couple of scenes that ultimately lead to Rowan learning everything that Carlotta has done, none of which was news to us, by the way, but all that stuff felt kind of like drawn out and repetitive to me. So, like, for example, we know what Carlotta did with Rowan as a baby, you know, taking her from Deirdre, giving her to the woman who ultimately ended up being Rowan's adoptive mom. We know all this already, right? Then in this episode, we have Rowan at the funeral discovering that everyone thought she didn't survive this whole birth, right? That she was dead. And she mentions it to Carlotta, and Carla kind of deflects when asked about it. But then, in an entirely different scene at the reception at the house later, Carlotta's like apologizing for keeping everything secret, making Rowan's adoptive mother keep her entire history secret. And then Rowan's like, wait, so you're the person who lied about me being dead? And I'm just like, we needed 2 scenes in this episode for Rowan to learn something we already knew? Like, that feels like wasting time. So that's why I say when we have these scenes where it's like, it feels like, like the opposite of what I said, the show that doesn't waste a single scene. And I said this feels like the opposite, where they waste scenes all the time. Like they needed 2 scenes for Rowan to arrive at the conclusion that Carlotta is the reason everyone thought she was dead, which Rowan does need that information, but we don't need it because we already got it. And we definitely don't need 2 scenes to tell that. Like, you could do that in 1 scene. So, like, that's what I mean about how I feel like this show continues to kind of, like, I don't want to say waste. No, I am going to say it. Waste time. And just not give us a lot of anything that we need. We also learn that this new blonde character, Tessa, and I say new because I don't recognize her, but she might have been in a previous episode. I don't know. But she expects Rowan to be a new designee, which is they refer to them as Mayfair matriarchs. They're essentially like the heads of the family, kind of like the mafia. Like, oh, we have all these heads of the Mayfair family. Deirdre's portrait's supposed to be up here. Carlotta put it up here. You up next, Rowan. And Tessa kind of, what I think is kind of interesting, I don't know if this is meant to inform on Tessa's character, that she's one of those like young woke political types, or if this is something that they're actually going to explore on the show. But this idea that Tessa seems to have of Rowan being like this young fresh face in witch politics, like I kind of be in for witch politics. Honestly, that'd be kind of interesting to me. But I'm sure that was just a throwaway line or whatever. They're not going to explore that. They're going to keep wasting time. I want to say this next thing is something we learned, but not something we learned, but kind of like more of a confirmation. But Sip reads that, what's the quote? So long as the necklace hangs around her neck, she belongs to him. And I think that does feel like confirmation that Lasher is tied to the necklace, and that, like I said earlier, he wants the necklace around Rowan, all that kind of shit. I think that's confirmation. So I like, not information, but confirmation. And even that comes sparingly on this show, so I'll take it. Then lastly, and I think very unsurprisingly, we learned that Carlotta was full of shit this entire episode. And she seems to attempt to burn both her and Rowan alive, but then accidentally ends up stabbing Sip as he breaks into the room trying to save Rowan. So I don't believe that Sip's going to die or anything like that. But interesting into the episode with Lasher, uninterestingly, showing up and telling Carlotta that Rowan is already his. And I want to close with one thought. I'm going to close with a thought about the episode, and I'm going to close with a thought about the show going forward. What's Cortland's plan for Deirdre's hair? She gets her wig snatched at her own funeral. No, he cuts off some of her hair at her own funeral. Obviously, that seems like some witch shit to do. But I'm curious what his goal is. Cortland to me is the most interesting character on this show. I'm super fucking interested. Like, that's the only thing on this show that I find compelling, is what is he up to. I'm super interested in what the fuck Cortland's up to. That alone is probably worth keeping me watching the show. And I think that's a good segue into how I want to close. I know I said if they didn't fix the Lasher character last week that I would probably be done covering this show. And truthfully, that's kind of how I feel like I want to proceed. But really, when I say I want to stop covering a show, it's usually kind of like, okay, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's all this effort, not enough return on views, or not enough return on enjoyment of the show. And I look at it as like, that's time I could spend on something else. The only thing here is like, there's not really a something else. Like there's the drought, there's the January drought. So it's like, I kind of feel like I should just keep covering it anyway. So that way, if it does get good, I can be here to talk to you guys about it. And then it's still content that I can put out there. Whereas like there's just not too much going on right now as far as content goes. I'm gonna watch the premiere 2 episodes of Shrinking on Apple TV right after I'm done with this video. That stars Jason Segel and Harrison Ford. I'll drop a video for that later today. But other than that, and Last of Us, there's not really too much going on for me to watch. So I feel like I probably should continue coverage, but we'll kind of see how things play out. So that's the plan for now. Until next week, or maybe this is the last time. We'll see. But until whenever, peace.